Well, hello, and welcome to the 25th year of this century. How about that, everybody? Happy New Year, everybody. I hope you had a fun and safe evening. Today completes Taint Week, technically, except for me. I'm making mine a little more extended in terms of this podcast. I'm producing an abbreviated version of the show this week. I'm just sharing my conversations with some of my favorite people who are able to chat during Taint Week. It's actually kind of hard to book people and even feel bad asking people during Taint Week to join me. Or maybe I should just do the opposite and definitely ask people because, you know, there are no rules. Anyway, thanks for your patience and your support here on the podcast because this is an independently produced show with no advertisements and only subscribers like you here to support it. So here at the beginning of the year, if you're listening to the show and you're not a paid subscriber, it would be so awesome if you signed up today. And if you want to pay more than you're paying right now, you can upgrade your subscription at patreon.com/Pete Dominic. And either way, I'm so happy to have you anytime you do press play and subscribe to this show for free as a podcast. You could do that as a video format as well. I hope you'll go over to YouTube where basically everything is headed now. If you don't have the app, by the way, download the YouTube app on your phone. It works way better that way to watch and listen to things on YouTube on your phone. That way, go to youtube.com/standupwithpete. Subscribe to my channel, which I'm hoping to grow and able to make money off advertisements over there. But even if that isn't the case, it brings new people here to the podcast. So head over to youtube.com/standupwithpete. And there you'll be able to watch some element, some version of video of the show. The audio posts there every day and has since the beginning. But now I'm trying to grow with video. So please head over to YouTube right now and head out to Vegas in March 28th to 30th. Join us. By the way, I haven't even mentioned this. This year it's going to be different than last year. And last year we were inside a circus tent because Cassie and Mike and our family produce this amazing event every year. And when it was off, we were in there doing our podcast and our stand-up and performances. But this year, it's going to be at Sunset Station Hotel and Casino. I don't think I've mentioned that, but you can stay there and you can hang out with us for the podcasts, tapings, and performances there at the Sunset Station. So it's going to be a more proper and traditional venue for podcasts and music and comedy performances and so on. So we will see you there in March. I hope it's going to be a 3-day event filled with activities, hiking, drinking beer, and other things. So sign up now. There are tickets there's a link in the show notes. Thank you very much to Cassie and Mindy, who have put a lot into this, both with their time and money, as well as Ophira Eisenberg, who's helping produce it. And I'm real excited to see you all out there. All right, let's get to my conversation with Glenn Kirschner. Normally here at the beginning, I produce and host the segment, The Good Stuff, which is happy, inspiring, hopeful, toxic positivity opening. Or at least just good news, good things to think about. And then I do the rest of the news, the headlines, the clips, and the interview. But for this week, it's just the interview. And like I said, thanks for your patience and support on that. Glenn Kirschner was a 30-year former federal prosecutor. Now he's the king of all media, basically all new media. He's got almost 1 million subscribers on his YouTube channel. You can support him on Patreon, listen to his show, Justice Matters, as a podcast, join his community. He's a real good friend of mine. I'm going to be headed down to his new studio in Leesburg, Virginia. You'll hear him talk about what he's doing there with his new one-on-one interviews. I'll be his guest pretty soon as I can get my butt down there, as he said. So support him on social media. Blue Sky, mainly now where he's posting, and thank him for joining me here on Stand Up because I got to get some of that good Glenn Kirschner magic that he produces every day. And like I said, he was a little sick, a little low energy, but it was great to catch up with my friend Glenn. Here we go. Yeah, there he goes. There he is, Glenn Kirschner. The last day of the year is when we were talking. What a year. Great to see you, man.
Good to see you, Pete.
Do you look back on the year at all? Do you do one of those at all? Do you do a year in review with your iPhone photos, much less your work?
No, not really. I'll do kind of a legal recap at the end, post a video. I do monthly recaps at the end of each month. But, I think we need to look forward, and I think we need to gear up, get ready for the battle.
Yeah, for sure. And you're leading in your lane on that over at all of your Justice Matters work. But, that's been the slogan that you've had for a long time. We got close. We got so close, and we don't really need to really talk about all the things that happen. But listening to you lately, you're using a new phrase, which I like. I think it's important, and I think I'm going to steal it. Points of light. So kind of every day you're trying to find points of light. And it seems like you, like me, and a lot of other people are changing our perspective on where the good stuff lies.
Yeah. And there are points of light out there amidst the Trump-induced darkness. We can forget that there still are folks out there fighting. There are organizations out there fighting. And then there are some unexpected points of light. And I feel a little dirty even referring to Republican senators as points of light. Doesn't feel right to me. But, when you think about the fact that Donald Trump, is going to come back into power as an avowed day one dictator, as somebody who has said he'll terminate the Constitution, as somebody who has pledged to use the military against his political foes, I thought anything he asked the Senate Republicans to do, they would roll over and play dead the way they have been doing in recent years. And that has not been the case. I mean, it started with Trump and company wanted Rick Scott as Senate Majority Leader, and Republican senators said no. Now, they said it anonymously behind closed doors. No profile encouraged there, but still, they said no. Then he said, Matt Gaetz is going to be my FBI director, and they said no. And this is a pattern now. He wanted them to raise the debt ceiling. No. He wanted them to shut down the government. No. He wants them to go out of session so he can cram all of his nominees down America's throats as recess appointments. They said no. He wanted his daughter-in-law or pretend daughter-in-law to be a senator from Florida. And even DeSantis said no. Man, that's a whole lot of no.
Why is she a pretend? Wait, hold on a second. You're right about that. It is a whole lot of no, and those are points of light, and there is resistance. I want to underscore that before I make my comment or joke. But why are you saying pretend daughter-of-law? I mean, she's legitimately, what's his name, Eric's wife, isn't she?
Oh, I'm sorry. I get the wives and the girlfriends mixed up. I wasn't intending to besmirch her good name.
Did you see that Don Jr. had his fiancée deported to be the ambassador of Greece? Like, he got his one ask, is my guess. Dad, give all the kids one ask. And he's like, can you send my girlfriend away so I can have a different one?
What an embarrassment America is. The people that he is tapping to be ambassadors. And it's such an embarrassment. I think it ultimately will be a miscalculation, because if you fill your cabinet and your administration with imbeciles, people who are just decidedly unqualified for the job, it's not going to play out well for him. If his goal really is to destroy all of the institutions of government, you should probably put somebody really accomplished and crafty and smart and conniving. And, those are the people who might be able to do real harm to our institutions of government. But Pete, we have civil servant protections. We have 2.1 million federal government employees, public servants. And, the Kennedys and the McMahons and these people will not win the day against 2.1 million public servants who actually give a shit about public service.
I want to believe that, but their Project 2025 agenda and the Supreme Court rulings makes it seem like they can purge a lot of those people. It doesn't seem realistic, because you wouldn't be able to, gears of government could potentially grind to a halt. But and how many loyalists that are qualified for those civil servant jobs are there, and do they all pass the loyalty test? I don't know. But I mean, are you worried that all those civil servants that you just mentioned, how many million, over a million?
2.1 million. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that they could be purged and replaced with MAGA droids?
I think if he succeeds, and here's the other thing, this shit's going to bog down in the courts in a hurry, right? I have great confidence in the federal judiciary in Washington, D.C., particularly the trial court judges, which is where all of these challenges are going to land. They will not be bulldozed. So the I think most direct example of that is, and I don't want to jump to whether Joe Biden should pardon the innocent. I don't think he should. But if Donald Trump begins to bring vindictive prosecutions against marquee opponents and enemies like Liz Cheney and Jack Smith, those will have to be run through the federal trial court in Washington, D.C. And these judges actually are loyal to the Constitution and the rule of law. And they will expose Donald Trump for, the abusive dictator that he aspires to be. And they will cram those cases, vindictive prosecutions, down the administration's throat. So if he thinks he's going to have an easy go of it, just steamrolling over the Constitution and the 2 million plus civil service corps, I disagree with that. Let him try. Do your worst, but it ain't going to be a cakewalk.
Let me ask you about this recent news. By the way, you've done videos on whether or not Biden should pardon preemptively people like Eric Swalwell and Liz Cheney and others. And you come down after much thinking on that he shouldn't. And people should go watch that video. It's interesting and important. And we'll know within a couple of weeks whether or not he does it, if he does it. But I want to ask you about this E. Jean Carroll news, because a judge just reaffirmed what happened with this legal action. They tried to appeal it. Judge threw it out. He owes $5 million. But, explain it to me like a tiny little baby. Is it just, can you just keep appealing forever and never have to pay out? Like, if I'm wealthy enough to pay lawyers to drag things out, do I just keep appealing until my legal fees somehow amount to whatever the judgment is or something? Is that the way the American justice system works? Because it feels that's the way it works.
Yeah, it feels that way. And, I have also done videos over the years about how we have to reform the system so that we don't let nefarious actors weaponize the delay in the courts. This is not rocket science. This is common sense. Donald Trump is a master of weaponizing the delay in the court system. To answer your question, can they appeal forever? No. So here are the next steps. Now look, the E. Jean Carroll verdict was handed down in 2023, so it's not like it was 10 years ago. The only two steps he has left, and the good news is they are both losing steps for Donald Trump. Now that the federal appeals court, the Second Circuit, unanimously, a 3-judge panel, rejected his ridiculous claims that he deserves a new trial because Judge Kaplan made all kinds of mistakes. No, he didn't. Now he can ask for the full court, en banc, all of the appellate court judges in the Second Circuit, there are probably 10 or 12 of them, to sit and rehear the case that he just lost. Those kind of rehearings en banc are almost never granted, especially when it's a unanimous 3-judge opinion, not a 2-1 split, right? And then once he loses that, and that's very short fused, usually petitioning for en banc review happens within 10 or 30 days, then he can beg and plead the Supreme Court to take this civil suit and rehear the issues that were just resolved by the federal appeals court. But there's no constitutional basis to do it. Now, does that mean the Supreme Court won't do him a solid? This Supreme Court forever has Donald Trump's back. Yeah. So who the hell knows? But this one feels like it's just about at the end of the rope.
Okay, so he'll probably have to pay her. I thought the settlement was like $80 million.
2 cases, 2 separate defamation cases, because he couldn't stop defaming her. The first one is $5 million. The second one is $83 million. That one we will hear what the appeals court does with soon, but it will likely be the same result. It should be affirmed on appeal.
You had a really interesting video recapping this column by, who is that? Daniel, the former FBI CIA head of CIA. He's 100 years old now.
William Webster.
Do you know that? Do you know him personally?
Yeah, no, I don't know William Webster. No, he's even before my time. I know I'm old.
He's 100 years old, but you had to see Glenn's reaction. Yeah, you actually graduated high school with him, I thought. I don't know.
Yeah.
He wrote this column disparaging, or I think warning is a better word, in the New York Times, or was it Times? I don't know where it was. Lieutenant Honore wrote something in the New York Times, I think, as well, warning about Elon Musk in Honore's case. But this case, he was warning about, I think, Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard. So, how much do you know about how the FBI, a lot about how the FBI works, having worked with him, and he certainly did. So what are your thoughts on those 2 appointments and what he had to say?
Yeah, so this guy, William Webster, is the only person to ever serve as both the director of the FBI and the director of the CIA. This man knows law enforcement, and he knows the intelligence side of what our government does. And even beyond that, he's had deep well of experience with the FBI because he was also a U.S. attorney out in Missouri. What do U.S. attorneys do? They make prosecutorial decisions based on the work of the FBI, based on the FBI's investigation. So when I was a federal prosecutor, I worked and coordinated closely daily with the FBI, for example, in RICO cases. So you really get to see an inside glimpse of how the FBI and the special agents operate. He was then a federal trial court judge where he presided over cases that were investigated by the FBI, and he had to make credibility determinations about testifying FBI agents in motions hearings, for example. He then became a federal appeals court judge. So this man knows whereof he speaks.
Right.
And he wrote a letter directly to the senators and said, and I'm going to paraphrase now, do not confirm Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard. Here's the sentence he finished with, and I have it right here because I was so taken by it. He said, I urge you to weigh the critical importance of nonpartisan leadership and experience. And here's what he says to the senators. The safety of the American people and your own families depend on it. I mean, talk about an ominous warning. Direct. Your own family's safety, senators, depends on you rejecting these unqualified hacks. And William Webster was appointed by more Republicans than Democrats, but he was appointed by both. Yeah. He had a bipartisan respect. And I hope some of those old time senators take his warning deadly seriously.
Yeah, his first appointment came from Teddy Roosevelt, I think.
No, not quite.
Oh, all right.
Not quite that far back.
All right. So there's that issue. It's just, so many people warned, including Trump's former chief of staff, who was a Marine, John Kelly, about how much of a national security threat he is. And he's certainly proving that out so far with his appointment. But we do have a few weeks left before he actually takes office. And it'll be interesting to see how much this drama plays out. I mean, you're a legal expert. You're mostly commenting on legal things. But when you come on my show, I want your take. I push you to give me your take on anything about life and politics in our country. And I just want your just general thoughts on Elon Musk's power and influence and how you see how consequential or not he is.
I don't think the bromance between Trump and Musk will last long. I mean, Trump is already feeling threatened, saying, hey, don't call it. He can't be president. He wasn't even born. It's feels like it's already unraveling. Yeah. I have a feeling. Now, let's remember, he was put as the co-head of a government agency that doesn't exist. The Doge is not a thing except in the minds of Donald Trump and Elon Musk and Ramaswamy, right? So I have to believe, Pete, that the senators, when you see Elon walking through the halls of Congress and Ramaswamy 3 steps behind, these senators have got to be going back to their offices saying, I got elected to the U.S. Senate. These guys got elected to nothing. Right. They got appointed to a non-existent agency. It's a play agency. Am I going to listen to anything these people have to say? And the senators at the end of the day are going to placate so they don't anger Donald Trump. But I think the Doge will just sort of evaporate very quickly. But who knows? And who knows how much damage a guy like Musk with all of his billions of dollars can do in the meantime? I don't know.
So what are your big concerns right now? I mean, everybody seems to think on day one he's going to make some crazy announcements like he did last time. And a lot of people talk about immigration and this mass deportation and building camps and all that shit. I don't know why, Glenn. Maybe because I'm just not as plugged in, honestly, or I'm maybe too optimistic, or I just don't. I have a hard time seeing this operation that he's promised and said he would. And when he says he's going to do something, you should believe him because he often tries. This whole mass deportation, building camps, arresting people at their workplaces, like every, by the way, right-wing conservative special interest is against it because they need these folks here working, making money off of doing the jobs that a lot of, native-born Americans won't do. But how concerned are you about that? What are you hearing, legally? How is he going to be able to pull this off, this plan? He's not.
This is governing by fear and intimidation and threats, but I don't believe he will be able to make good on any of it. Listen, he came in his first term, and one of the first things he did, I think within the first 7 days after being sworn in, was, issue that hateful Muslim ban.
Yeah.
And it was challenged in court and it failed. So he redid it. It was challenged in court the second time and it failed. The third time and it failed. It took 4 times. And it was so watered down by then that it wasn't quite as dramatically hateful as he had hoped it would be. So he's not going to be able to execute anything. This is all another version of we're going to build the wall and Mexico's going to pay for it. We didn't build the wall and Mexico didn't pay for it. I wonder why Mexico doesn't build a wall to keep us out. Like Canada, too, you know. So he's not going to be able to execute on any of this. What he wants to do, Pete, I believe, is just like in the first term, when in the first 2 years, he had all of the levers of power and he accomplished almost nothing but tax cuts for billionaires. Maybe he gets that through again. What he wants to do is create so much chaos that his corruption inside the chaos will thrive and his grift and his self-enrichment will thrive. That's all he ever really wants, right? I don't think there's a great report. I wish I had paid more attention to it about a successful deportation effort during the first Trump administration. And they went through great detail about how they planned it for 6 months. They poured $15 million into it. And at the end of that operation, they successfully deported 140 people. That doesn't sound like 10 million people to me. I mean, it can't be done. Do we need to reform our immigration process? Absolutely. Do we need immigrants to keep America up and running? Absolutely. Is diversity America's superpower? Absolutely. It may be the only one we have left at this point until we rid ourselves of Trump and company. But these are all hollow threats designed to scare people, including people who are maybe thinking about coming here to try to make a better way for themselves and their family, to try to, flee persecution in their home countries. He's trying to deter them by over-threatening, and he will not be able to deliver on most of these threats. In my opinion, though, I'm not an expert on any of that.
Yeah, I hope you're right. Real quick, I think now he's thrown his weight, Trump, his significant weight, behind Mike Johnson for Speaker of the House. But who knows if he gets confirmed, which is in 2 days. So I guess we'll know, and this will be stale information. But I mean, if he doesn't get confirmed as Speaker of the House, then Trump, he can't confirm the presidential results without a Speaker of the House, is my understanding. Any thoughts on how that's going?
My thoughts on whether the House will now roll over and get in line behind MAGA Mike Johnson. Let's see. Trump also said recently, raise the debt ceiling, House. And Republicans were like, no, okay, shut the government down. Do not pass a CR. And the House Republicans said, no. So do we really think because Donald Trump just said, Mike Johnson's my man, they're all going to fall in line? Didn't Trump and company want Rick Scott as Senate Majority Leader? Right. And we have Thune. They rejected him. Why do we think this won't, again, receive another resounding no? Because the folks who are in Congress are like, you know what? We've been elected. We got to say we're not falling in line. I think the dysfunction and the chaos and the dissension inside the Republican Party will be something we need to embrace. And I think it will be glorious. And I think it will be another enormous impediment to Trump accomplishing anything.
I'm looking forward to talking to you, seeing you in the new year. What's new with you? You're obviously kicking ass, so consistent, OCD-like, posting videos every day on your very popular, almost 1 million subscribers on YouTube now. Of course, you can hear it as a podcast. Support Glenn on Patreon. You're posting on Blue Sky pretty actively. You get a huge following there. You're a monster. You're you're the king of all media. What is going to change this year? Are you doing anything new, exciting with your work?
I am, Pete. I've got my little office/studio in downtown Leesburg, Virginia, and I just got a one-on-one live interview studio up and running, and you're going to be one of my first guests as soon as you get your butt down here from New York to D.C. And so on and around January 6th and January 20th, I'm going to be interviewing some of the police officers who, fought to save our democracy on January 6th. We're going to do some one-on-one interviews about how they're feeling given the anniversary. I have a former federal prosecutor who was a colleague of mine who had boots on the ground. She was working as a federal prosecutor on January 6th. This is a story that hasn't been told yet, and it's fascinating. Not only did she have boots on the ground on January 6th in a working capacity, but then she was the first prosecutor who went into court the next morning on January 7th and arraigned or had the first court hearing in the people that we locked up on Capitol grounds on January 6th. There weren't many of them, but there were some. And that's a one-on-one interview that I'm really excited to do with my friend Elise.
Awesome. Very exciting. All of that. And for my in-studio interview, I hope you got my writer in agreement. I require a bit of care.
Okay. And I understand I need to film you through gauze and put Vaseline on the lens. Is that true?
You don't have to do it. I mean, I'm sure
Vaseline somewhere. I don't remember where you.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll have people that will do that. I do. I need to be completely greased up before the. We'll grease our heads together. We should do like a live read for some bald man cream or shaving product to get paid. I think we should work together because you have a massive following and I don't. So I'd like to profit off of you.
Actually should work in a comedy bit or two while you're down here. What the hell, right?
Yeah. When I'm shaving my head, I turn to whatever. And then everybody's a winner. All right, bud. Great to see you. Thank you very much for joining me. Happy New Year. I really appreciate you joining me as always.
Happy New Year, Pete. I'll see you soon.
All right. There he goes. Glenn Kirschner. Isn't he great? Thank you very much, Glenn, for joining me. Go thank him on Blue Sky. And you can also thank him by subscribing if you haven't already to his YouTube page and support him on Patreon. It's Glenn Kirschner. All the links are in the show notes, but Glenn Kirschner too on social media. Justice Matters on YouTube. And he is so good to me and I am so grateful to him. So hopefully you appreciated that New Year's Day conversation and I've got all kinds of ideas for 2025. Very much looking forward to producing them and sharing them and experimenting with them. And I cannot do it without your support. So thank you very, very much for pressing play today. Tell your friends about it. Join the Blue Sky social media platform, if not just to follow some of your favorite people. You don't have to post necessarily. It's I think a great format over there and it's working out the kinks all the time, as well as YouTube. Necessary evil, ladies and gentlemen, YouTube. Yeah, TikTok may be going away. So hey, youtube.com/standupwithpete right now. John Carroll, support him at johncarroll.org and buy this song and the rest of his music at johncarroll.org. It would be great to sell some of John's music here on the first day of the year as well. You bumblebees are what I've coined those who listen all the way to the end. You're the best. I love you very much. I'm so grateful and I will talk to you tomorrow, I hope.
Off of your butt, down off of your fence, even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense and you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town, just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down, boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. Alright, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it is time to go and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Where the money all went, it'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it than now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well, and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up, stand up, got to stand up. Ooh, come on, just stand up. Everybody got to stand up. come on.